Today we're going to work on making the handle for our mug. If you can see this shape, it's wider at the top and comes down more narrow as it reaches the wall, almost like the shape of a human ear, and our hand goes in there in the negative space. Here we have a more of a slight of a C, like the letter C, for that negative space for the mug. These are two examples of handles. They're about this width wide. That's about an inch wide in this direction. Maybe a little bit more to a ½ inch for this smaller mug. So we'll look at those. This does have some carved ridges in there, calling it a strap handle. So we'll look at making a handle using a slab, throwing a slab. If this was our mug wall, this handle holds its form because it's leather hard. It has its shape, it's set up. I made it yesterday, and so now it has its form. I did cut an angle there so it sits nicely next to the walls. That's an example of a handle. I also have another handle here that has a little curve. It's not totally leather hard, so it's not holding its form. And then I made earlier today, I was working on looking at more of a C. That's a little bit long. I'm going to show you this and cut it down. You can cut it with my needle tool, cut this with my needle tool, and then it would be more this direction. But notice, it's not leather hard, so it keeps losing its form. I would want to let my handle set up and dry. And we'll talk about that more. Not dry, bone dry, but get more set up and become leather hard and hold its form. So in order for you to make your handle, I would like for you to take your wedged clay. I don't need all this clay. I'm going to cut this in half with my wire tool. I've wedged it already. I am then going to pound it, give it a couple pounds to go ahead and flatten it in that pancake form. I'm then going to throw my slab. I'm going to have my blanket this way and hold it so it doesn't move. And I'm going to take my slab and throw it. Remember, it's pushing it forward and elongating the clay and thinning it out. Oops, I lost my blanket. And I'm thinning out the clay to make it about a ½ inch thick. I'll push that back a little more. And I'm throwing my slab in order to thin out my clay. Again, I'm holding it up, supporting it with one hand and pushing it and elongating it. Okay, and that is thinning out my slab. The name of the game is how can you do it really quietly. And I'm picking it up, holding it, and throwing my slab. So now it's starting to go in this direction. Typically when I'm making a circle or throwing a slab, I turn it once to the right. But here we're making a more of a vertical, that airplane strip, so I can just take the clay and keep elongating it this way, lengthwise, so I have a vertical orientation. It doesn't have to be as wide this way because it's a handle, making it like a strap. So now that I've thinned out my clay, I do like to take the metal scraper and smooth out the surface. If we have some real big bumps, we can also take the blue rib and smooth out that surface, metal scraper, and prepare the clay in order to cut out the handle. I also can take my sponge and smooth out so it's nice and consistent. I am going to check both sides. I've taken this side, I flip this over, I pull the blanket away instead of pulling the clay away. I lay it down this way because I smooth that other side. And this side already looks really smooth, but I am going to remove the blanket texture by smoothing it with the metal scraper and the sponge. The blanket texture happens just from a little bit of the relief on the canvas, and I want to make it nice and smooth. I then can take my ruler. I have one ruler that's a little bit skinnier. This wooden ruler is about the width of this mug's handle, this width, this width. This one is a little bit wider for the larger mug. I can actually lay this ruler down onto my thrown slab, and I can use the width of the ruler as a template, just like you use the paper. I'm going to take the tool right next to it, cut it down, remove that clay, remove my extra clay on my needle tool, take the other side, hold the ruler down, and I've taken it straight down. And I've removed my clay. Now my strap for my handle is really long. I only need about 7 inches. You could go down anywhere from 5 to 7 inches, but 7 inches is a good place to start. I'm going to put it in the center 7 inches because the edges of the clay, when you throw a slab, tend to be the thinnest. And we want to have a consistent thickness. So I'm going to use the end of the ruler. I'm going to turn it around so I can use the end of the ruler. Take my 7 inches up to here. turn it so you can see a little bit better. I'm going to, right here is my 7 inches down here because I already cut that end. I'm then going to take this and cut off the extra there. If you can see here, the reason I did this is because this is a consistent width from throwing my slab, but as I got to the ends, the edges of the slab get thinner, and I want the consistent width. So that's why I take the center part of my slab that I threw. So now I have 7 inches of a strap, a flat slab, for my handle. I'm going to take my sponge, and I like to round my sponge in my fingers and smooth the edges of my handle. So I'm smoothing the sides and the ends so they're not super sharp from cutting it out. If you wanted to have a little bit more of a bevel or something, you could take it and smooth it with a wooden modeling tool. But the clay is pretty sticky right now, so I'm not going to manipulate it a lot because it's really plastic. I can do carving into it or more decorations as the clay becomes more leather hard. But I did just take that edge of this and smooth it down just so it's not so geometric like the side of a table and cut out from the slab. So it just rounds it a little bit. So I just skimmed it off with a wooden modeling tool, and then I come back and smooth it. Now here, in order to make just this shape, all I need to do is on my side angle, take my strap and just curve it. Sorry, I want to make sure you can see everything. Now I just curve it. I can do it on the ground, but I'm showing you here, and decide, do I want it to have more of the ear shape, or do I want it to be more of a circular, like a C? So whatever the shape is, or do I want it to make it a little bit more of a shallow C? Up like that. I can also look at this for kind of register, you know, is this too long? This looks a little bit long for the size of the mug, so I'd maybe cut it shorter. Do I want it there? Do I want it to be here? That would definitely need to go shorter. Do I want to have this and then curl something up underneath? What would I like to do for my handle? Essentially, I make that handle shape. I really like this handle shape. It's up to you. And I set it down on its side. So here, it will sit next to your base and your walls, and you will just have your handle resting on its side so it can become leather hard for you to score and slip it to your mall's next class. Okay, so now your handle is ready to get wrapped up next to your base on your bat with your plastic bag. Don't forget to spray it down as you leave and make sure everything's smooth and there's no extra pieces of clay or bumps. I could do a little, I've got a little bump in here I want to kind of tap out. Make your handle look awesome, make a nice form, and let it get leather hard before you attach it to your walls. Thanks.